the odd occasion that we did lose it, Dyer and Dembele just won the ball back straight away pretty much. And then you had Wanyama come on afterwards, and that just carries on. And it just makes you wonder, really, once we get Toby back as well, and, when Wanyama's fully fit, be interesting to see what the starting 11 is going to look like.
Yeah,
and while we're giving shout-outs, don't forget Jan. He had another solid performance.
Always.
He has been amazing.
Yeah. We almost haven't missed Toby. I mean, the first couple of games hurt, but it's not as painful as it was last year when he went out. Sanchez has done wonderfully integrating into the squad, and although he does make a few errors here and there in passing, his speed, much like Walker, will make up that difference, and he's able to get back. And when he does have the opportunity to defend, he's almost flawless. So I think it's just a massive signing. And Chairs, I know I cut you off there. Did you have some more on the Everton statistical?
Well, Sonny was the first Spurs player to score in 5 consecutive home matches since Defoe in 2004. So I think we knew that record was going to fall. There was one other. It was a graphic on the third goal. I was trying to look for it. I thought I had tweeted it out. I guess I hadn't. I didn't see it on the BBC's website, which is where I thought I saw it. But every player was involved in the Eriksen goal. I think it went from Lloris up the center, outside the box, to the left. Interestingly enough, it went to Dembele. It came back. But then it switched over to the left, and then obviously the goal came from that nice flick from Dele. And I think, Ken, you said when that went in at the pub, they should do like hockey on a goal like that and give 2 assists because it was such a superb move by Tottenham, and you just knew it was going to be a goal at the end. That's what we like to see from Spurs. That's what the Spurs old guys have grown up on, is that kind of silky play. It's what we're renowned for, and that was just the icing on the cake. It was a fantastic team goal. So great stuff. One other thing on stats, because we haven't really revisited for a few weeks the season comparisons, and yesterday, surprisingly enough, this is how far ahead we are of this season versus last season because of the World Cup and ending the season a week earlier. But that was our 23rd match of the season. Last year, our 23rd match came in the Sunderland game, which was right at the end of January. It was that 0-0 awful away draw that Rose got injured in. So that was back-to-back draws last season. So after the West Ham game, obviously like for like there, we have managed to close the gap to 3 points behind the pace of last season. And I think there's another draw on the horizon in the next 2 games. So if we win the next 2, we'll be level on 50 points with the same clip from the 25 games from last season. However, the exact corresponding fixtures, we would still be 9 points behind because we were on that... We're coming up to that tear where we just won pretty much everything till the end of the season, bar a couple of games.
Yeah, definitely. I think I tweeted out a couple days ago. I was seeing a lot of people getting really disgusted with the lack of transfer stuff going on, and we've talked until we can't talk anymore about the fact that the winter window, especially for us, is something that's really not active, and we had our discussions about who, if it's going to be somebody, who's it going to be. For me, it was Sessegnon or bust, and I put a tweet out saying, people bitch and moan constantly because we don't go out and sign this $60 and $70 million talent, and I don't think that they realize that when you look across the board at our attacking options, between Sonny, Dele, Eriksen, and Kane, at a minimum, they're all $60 to $70 million rated talent. So who is that person going to replace as they integrate into a new squad? And to have that on the bench is the luxury that we are simply not there yet. So to Vass's point a couple of weeks ago when we talked about this. So I think everybody just needs to temper themselves with, if improvements need to be made, we've talked that maybe it's at the wing back positions, and with Rose, REA, Trippier, and Davis, and maybe there's movement if Rose does go, and how do we replace that? So it's just something to think about, and just a point I wanted to make real quick.
Well, here, let me do the spin side of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is a very strong starting 11, when you're able to play just on the weekends. But when this fixture congestion hits, we're going to go from January 31st to February 13th, having played United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Juventus. And I don't think the same 11 are going to be able to go out every single one of those games. So that's where, signing this other player, even though, if it's your strongest 11, he may be on the bench. When these games come really quickly back to back against these big names teams, that you're battling against for top four in Champions League, we're going to need that type of player. So that's where I see the need to go out and sign someone. Now, I'm not on the Twitter meltdown bashing it. This is a difficult window. It's not likely that player is there, but I see the need to bring in someone, even though we do have a very strong starting 11. It's always there to improve that bench. I would like, and I know Vass, sorry, but I would like someone instead of Sissoko to be that player that can come on. And I'm not trying to, get on a Sissoko bashing rant, but I really would just like an upgrade on him for someone to come off the bench.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, Tim. Probably Sissoko is, at the very least, the one player that we can upgrade on.
And that's why I wanted Barkley, because I thought he could have been the upgrade on Sissoko. Maybe not starting every game, but I would have rather had him come in than Sissoko. So that's really, I want us to sign someone at that. And even if it's an international, drop Sissoko's international spot on the Champions League roster. You get to reset those. We're worried about not having enough foreign player positions on the Champions League roster. Drop Sissoko and bring in someone to replace him.
Yeah, I think Barkley, though, even with 100-plus Premier League matches, you still don't know what you're going to get with that player. I think that if Tottenham are going to go out and invest in a player that's actually going to make a difference and be another lock picker like an Eriksen or even a Lamela when he's on form, you've got to find that player that you absolutely unequivocally know what you're going to get when you spend 50 or 60 million on that attacking option that, oh, by the way, is going to be coming off the bench at 150 grand a week. So.
But see, I'm not looking at us having to spend that much. I'm looking at Max Meyer, who's 6 months left on his contract, someone who's going to be available for free at the end of the summer. Bring in someone like that now instead of Sissoko coming off the bench. So I'm not saying go spend 70 million, but there are players out there who are going to be out of contract that we could bring in now that would be an upgrade on Sissoko. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like it.
The thing that's the big questions become how effective are they going to be, right? I mean, we see Everton spend all sorts of money on players who were extremely successful where they were at that had not played in the Premier League, and some that had. They suck. They can't. They've not taken to the Premier League the way they should have, and we've done that. Soldado and Paulinho and some of these other players that were deemed possibly just on this side of world class. Because of the goals they were banging in, just it doesn't work sometimes. So I think that's the hardest part, right? Is finding the player that's going to be able to integrate into the Premier League and the squad and that style of play. That's a big three-headed monster.
No, and I get it, but I mean, bringing it back, I don't think Sissoko's doing that now. So even if you bring in someone, I think they'll do at least the same, if not better, than what he's doing. And I don't want to keep harping on him, but I think that is the weakest link in the team. And you see that he's a player who comes off the bench.
Yeah.
So I would like more quality than that. And I think we can get it this window, get it with players who have expiring contracts, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And spin the transfer discussion, Sessegnon, are we going to miss out on that? What do you think, Kenny? Because if we don't get him now, we're fighting with teams that have more financial power in the summer. I don't think we're going to win that bidding war. Yeah. I think now is the time they get him.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, if you want to read, believe what you read, it's PSG and it's United and it's that talk that comes from the club to try to jack up the price? Is it agent talk to try to jack up the price? Is it both? There's a lot that can be said or not said if a player is truly interested. Vass, I know you put out a tweet. What was it, yesterday, right? About this whole transfer business and the 2 weeks of what happens as far as the build-up, the media overblowing it, and then it never happens. I think about that the Brazilian kid, right?
Yeah, so it just strikes me that there's a lot of nonsense that's touted around in transfer windows. I mean, my tweet was basically saying that, media has a tenuous link between Spurs and a player, and then they start talking about they're thinking about making a bid or arranging a meeting. Then you'll hear that there'll be one or two other clubs interested, just to cause a little bit of panic. And then some other story comes out, and then before you know it, their interest in that player has ended. And, you could have had 2 weeks of stories over one player that really wasn't a link in the first place. But, another newspaper or website or what have you has had quite a lot of traction of running those stories over a period of 10 to 14 days. And to me, the January transfer window is a waste of time. I've said it before, keep harping on about it, apologies, but you're only ever going to move on players that are unhappy or coming to the end of their contracts.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of those players. You've also got to think about perhaps, I don't know, if you've got a squad where there's lots of harmony in it at the moment, bringing in a player mid-season, does that disrupt the flow a little bit? I don't know. There's just so many things to consider. I don't know. I think I always find in January you're either overpaying or you're getting people that may be out of just a little bit of desperation. Clearly, if there's value, you should go for it. And I agree with Tim. Sessegnon, for example, I think if we are serious about that player, then we need to move in this window as opposed to wait until the summer.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I can't really see us doing anything more, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we a lot of people, Sonny's on such a run right now, and I didn't put this in the rundown, but it struck me yesterday because I tweeted out something about his military commitments that he has to make eventually with South Korea, and when does that have to start? And somebody said that a couple of people actually have commented on it, saying that he can play abroad until July 2019. That's less than a year and a half away. And he's just now starting to come into form with this club. Unless South Korea win trophies or medal in the Olympics or whatever it is that they have to do to get that, for those players to get that exemption, and South Korea, oh, by the way, is not even close yet, we run the risk of losing him in 2019. Do you think, Tim, because I'll start with you on this, that's a player that Spurs maybe try to cash in on as they monitor what South Korea from an international level is doing?
No, and I don't think that's necessarily true that they have to win something on an international level to be exempt, because Ji-Sung Park, former Man United player, was there for a while. He had the exemption. He never had to go into military duty, and he didn't win anything internationally for South Korea. So I don't think that's, the only thing that can exempt you. He was their biggest name player probably ever in South Korea history, being at United during those Ferguson years, winning titles. So I don't think that's the be-all, end-all for Sonny's exemption, and I wouldn't cash in on him, because how are you going to cash in on him? Who's going to buy him if he's going to have to go off to military duty? There is no cashing in if he's not going to be eligible to play.
Yeah, I get that. What about you, Chairs?
That's a tough one. I mean, I know he's got to win a trophy with the national team to be exempt, correct?
No, that's what I just said. Ji-Sung Park never won a trophy with the national team, and he was exempt.
Oh, he was?
United
okay.
player.
Well, then we'll see. I'm not a big fan of talking about hypotheticals when it's so far away and anything can happen. So I don't want to say it's not an important story, but I guess we'll deal with it when the time comes. I would hate to not be able to capitalize on it, but why would we need to capitalize on it when he's playing as well as he is? And you look at him now versus his first season when he actually went to Poch and said he wanted to leave. He has certainly come on in the last 2 seasons, and I know he still has moments of madness, but so does everyone, and we should dwell on those. We should dwell on the fact that he is just on this rich vein of form that is, it's like having a second striker.
Yeah, it would be. Imagine if it was done, dusted, and that was the rule, period, how devastating. I mean, I hate using the word, but how